Why vote? I think when you go to other places, particularly other countries, and you see people queuing for hours just so that they can engage in their local democratic process, makes you realise how much in this country we just take it for granted.
It is extremely important that people become engaged in politics, because politics affects every area of life from cradle to grave. It affects the National Health Service, it affects education, it affects all aspects of the law and how it impinges on individuals. So, I mean, to ignore politics is to say, I am not a citizen and I'm not affected by the state, which is clearly ridiculous. So it is important because your voice does count.
If they care about affordable homes, if they care about jobs, whatever, if they care about the climate, if they care about security, if they care about the police, it's crazy not to vote because you lose your right to care.
There are so many people for whom which party is in, which ideology is dominant does make a difference. It makes a difference to people who lose benefits, lose pensions, lose local services, buses, schools, hospitals, and that makes a difference to our communities. It makes a difference to our society overall. And so for those reasons and so many more, I think we need to be in it. We need to be in the system as well as against it. It doesn't have to be an either or. I think we can do both.
It's important that the youth, so people of my age, I think it's important that we vote, because at the end of the day, the policies and regulations and legalities that are made now have an impact on our future.
Not enough people, if you don't vote as a whole, like, it can affect the legitimacy of the government that comes into power at the time. So I always think about the case of 2001 general election, which had a really low turnout. I think it was about 56%. That means that only just over half of the electorate who were eligible to vote did vote. And so if you take into account the amount of people that did vote Labour, it was under half of the population of the country. So I think that does ask questions about the legitimacy of the government, how democratic the process is.
We do have to ask, is it a coincidence that young people have so much less hourly wages than older people, that their housing rights have been so drastically reduced compared to older people, that their benefits have been so drastically affected compared to older people? The government knows that young people as a group do not turn out to vote. Their voice is not being pushed, their demands are not being heard, and so I do feel to a certain extent that the government thinks it can do what it likes to that group, because they know that group will not come out and punish them for those sort of actions at the next general election.
One thing I think everyone ought to recognise is that democracy is not an end, it's not a goal, it's a process. And it's quite a fragile process. It's terribly easy for it to be nibbled away at by governments in good faith. Governments rightly feel that they've been elected by a majority usually, and I'm talking about democratic countries, and that they therefore know what is good for people. And actually they don't always know what is good for people. And there is a tendency for them to override, as it were, the wishes of the people. And that's why people have to be extraordinarily vigilant about democratic processes and keep it to the fore of their mind. And to, we sometimes get very cross about the people who demonstrate and they make such a noise and these are such trivial issues, whatever. They're not. People must be free to express their views, and ultimately they must be free to be able to influence the way in which governments decide on issues which affect their lives.
People have given their lives to get the vote. Women gave their lives to get the vote. It's only since 1969 have 18-year-olds, both male and female, had the vote. There was a time when only men over 21 and only a select few over 21 had the vote. We now have universal suffrage. Use it.